What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Invest Iowa. Today I have Loren Wernette with me, and we're going to talk about building an entire business in less than 2 years, 53 doors? No,
52, 52, 52.
70 doors? No, that you said it was 76 doors.
Yeah, 76 doors, 52 properties.
That's amazing. We're going to talk about taking action, how to get that first leap of faith, not get stuck in the learning but not doing stage of your life, and how to branch out without having shiny object syndrome. Thank you so much for coming, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be here.
Awesome. Talk to me about you. How do you describe yourself?
So I would describe myself as extremely motivated, always wanting to learn and looking to constantly grow and improve my network.
Okay. I just like everybody, just like every other real estate investor.
Yeah, I mean, network is incredibly important, right? And
Yeah.
you become valuable in a network with the more you know and the more people you know. And if you can become kind of that integrator in your network where you're connecting one person to another, like it's not about what you can get out of somebody, it's about what you can provide to other people.
Right. 100% agree. How do you get into real estate?
So actually funny, I never wanted to get into real estate. My dad had had a rental growing up and it was just a nightmare. And then 2020, when COVID hit, I was working a 9 to 5 job and we went from the office 5 days a week to 5 days a week at home. And I realized that things weren't quite as secure as I thought they were if they could make that shift that quick. You know, I'm the sole provider. I've got 4 kids and a wife that stays home. And I needed to do something else. So we started Amazon business. Did that for about 9 months, made a little bit of money, but the profits weren't worth the effort at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so my buddy was doing rentals. He had a couple, and I said, "Oh, this sounds like a good way to make some money." He's like, "Oh, I make $400 a month in cash flow." So I quick did the math. I'm like, okay, I need 54 properties, and I'll have enough to cash flow to replace my income. Learned a lot since then, but that kind of headed me down the path. I got stuck in the same mindset that a lot of people get stuck in is I don't have $20,000 for a down payment. I don't have all the don'ts or all the reasons why I can't do something. And so I didn't do anything besides just kind of learning and looking at properties and stuff for a good year. And then in May of 21, I was at a bonfire with that same friend. And he's like, if we find the right deal, like you'll find money like that. Don't worry about the money, find the right deal. And it just kind of set me off on this path. I created a business plan. I was going to go into self-storage and then switch to mobile home parks and then eventually settled on small multifamily. So duplexes, triplexes, things of that nature. And all through that process, I was, cold calling. I was trying to meet new people. And that's how I really got to my first deal is I was cold calling mobile home parks and met a guy that was operating in one of the markets I was very interested in that had mobile home parks, but also had a bunch of multifamilies. Like he had just bought a 60-unit apartment building and he offered to seller finance a triplex to me as my first deal. And not only did he offer to seller finance it to me, he offered to help me out with giving me contractors, helping me figure out how to do the renovations because I don't have a construction background, do all these things. And so it was a huge, huge help at the time because as a new investor, like everything is terrifying. Like, oh, I've got no property, and yet I'm terrified about how am I going to find contractors? Like I didn't even need to worry about contracts because I had no property, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I bought a property, guess what? I figured out how to get contractors. And so we went through that, got that all renovated, and then didn't buy another property until that was November of 21. 21. So my first property, November 21, and now it's the middle of October of 23, and I've got 53. So,
Wow, that is huge. What was the strategy for that?
So I mean, my plan going into 22 was to buy 10 doors. But my pinch point, like when you have a business, you should always be trying to identify what are your pinch points? What are the things that are preventing you from growing? Because what will happen is you will grow until you hit that point, then you will plateau until you solve it, and then you will grow really quickly again and then plateau. So the faster you can figure out what your pinch points are and solve them, the faster you will grow. So in March of 22, I was just kind of doing what I always do, which is running numbers. Every morning I would run 5 to 10 deals, whether they were good or not, just as reps, right? Just get volume in, practice. And I had a property come across my desk, and I actually saw it, and I've been working that market long enough. I'm like, okay, it was a really bad picture. You couldn't really see what it was. And it was high. It was like $139,000. So I just figured, okay, single family home behind a tree, ignore. And my buddy sent it back to me like half an hour later. He's like, hey, did you see this? It's a multifamily. So I look at it closer, and it is actually like the sister property, the one I already owned. It was a triplex, brick triplex built in 1986, basically a big tissue box. And they wanted about the same price that I paid for mine. And so I didn't have any money at the time. I had have all of it was still wrapped up in my first triplex, which I hadn't refinanced yet. And so I called up one of the guys I knew that I'd met at a real estate meetup. And I kind of sent him a couple other properties just as like, hey, I can't do anything with this here. Why don't you buy it? So I sent him this one. I said, hey, I own the exact same property as this, just like half a mile away. This is a great deal. Like based on the pictures, it needs even less work than what mine did. So it's a better deal. It's going to cash flow really well. You should buy it like today. And he's like, well, I'm going to go up there today and look at it. Do you want to come? I was like, sure, I've got to go look at my property anyways. So I met him there, and I'm talking him through the whole thing. And he's like, well, do you want like a finder's fee or something? Because he's going to put a full cash offer on, which I think about it might be the only full price offer we've ever put in since then. Anyway, he's like, do you want a finder's fee? And I said, no, I don't need a finder's fee, man. I just want people around me to do really well, because if everyone around me is doing well, then I will do well. And he's like, well, I'm really good at finding money. Like he has a ton of private money lenders that work with him. He's really good at that. And why don't I fund this deal with my private money lender connections? You manage it and we'll split the profits 50-50. And I said, perfect. I mean, that sounds great. I'm trying to get 10 more units this year. This is 3. That sounds great. And so I'm
7
talking
to go.
him. Yeah, 7 to go, right? And this was April. We closed in April. So I was on a good path. And then I was talking to him more and realized that he had, a lot of money that was kind of sitting in the wings that people were ready to invest with him. He has a really good reputation. And what he was kind of missing was the systems and processes to really replicate finding more deals. And he didn't know that market quite as well as I did. And I just felt like we figured we could make a really good team, because I was finding deals regularly. I just couldn't convert on them because I didn't have money, and he had money. Right. And
Right.
so I said, he had like 3 or 4 other partners at the time. I said, I'm going to be your biggest partner by the end of the year. And he had maybe close to 100 units at that point in time. And he's like, well, let's just do one at a time. And by the end of last year, we had purchased, I think, 29 more properties, and I was his second biggest partner, or maybe his biggest partner. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, it just kind of took off because, like I said, my pinch point was money and his pinch point was processes and systems. And when we paired up together, we were able to do far more than we would have alone.
That's amazing. So processes and systems, like let's dive into that. What does that mean to you?
So to me, there's a couple pieces of it. First is I absolutely hate doing the same thing repeatedly over and over again, right? And so, for example, when I started running numbers, I figured out how to run numbers on a property. And then I took that and created an Excel worksheet that all I have to do is type in like 5 different things, and it pumps out a report of exactly, if it's going to be a flip, what the profit's going to be, if it's going to be a rental, what the profit's going to be, what would I need to appraise for if I'm going to burr it. So I'm able to basically run numbers on a property within 5 minutes fairly accurately and have a report that then I can give to a lender, right? And so what are you doing on a day-to-day basis that is repeat tasks that you can figure out how to automate or outsource? The other big thing I did was I have a W-2, still have a W-2 job at this point. But I started purchasing in a market that was about 45 minutes away from me. And I think 2 things of A, having a W-2, and B, purchasing away from my house made me have to systematize things more than I would have. Because let's say it's a house that's like 5 minutes down the street and they need like some paint or something. The contractors need paint. I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to grab the paint and I'm going to run and get it, right? And drop it
Yeah.
off there. It's 45 minutes away and I've got a W-2. Now I have to figure out solutions to get other people to do those things for me. And what that's allowed me to do with the first unit or the first property wasn't that big of a deal. But as we scaled, I have probably 24 houses I've never been to this day, right? And it's because I have systems and processes that allow other people to do the things that I would do and me to have confidence knowing that they're done correctly.
Okay. That's yes. In regards to processes and systems, I 100% agree with you. In terms of lead generation, is there anything that you are or that you automized that took you to the level that you are right now, besides the spreadsheet? I guess my real question is, how were you lead generating to the point that you were every single day analyzing like 5 deals per day?
Yeah. So I took the approach really early on that I was going to heavily utilize wholesalers. And so as opposed to automation, it was more of a process. So every night, basically, I was on Facebook Marketplace, and I was just looking for deals. And so what I did over time was just through consistent action of this wholesaler is working in my area, I'm going to give him my information so that I'm on their list, right? And so let's say you do that 5 times and you do that over 100 days, that's 500 wholesalers that are going to have deals. And with wholesalers and with any kind of real estate deal, it's a volume game. How many deals can you look at on a daily basis? How fast can you look at those, and how quickly can you weed out the bad ones from the good ones? And so by getting a whole lot of wholesalers that know that I'm an end buyer, they know exactly what I'm looking for. I have very tight criteria. I am looking for single family homes that are 3 bedrooms and up, 1,000 square feet or more, that are in a specific geography, right? And I purchase at 70% LTV. That's purchase plus renovation, right? So that weeds out a whole bunch of things. And so I might get 30 deals. Some days I get 30, some days like 15 in my inbox on a daily basis. And I'm able to quickly wean that down to 1 to 2 or maybe none really quickly by, are they in the right area? Are they 3 bedrooms and up? Do they have enough equity in them? Do they have enough value that I can add to them? And then from there, then we go into the next process, which is, can I get my contractor to go look at them and basically get the estimate of what it's going to cost to fix it up? Do I know the area well enough to be able to get an idea of what the rent is? Or do I know the area well enough to get a good price that we would be able to sell it for if we're going to flip? And then what do I have in the pipeline as far as other projects? And do I have the bandwidth to take this on, right? If it's a full gut job and I've got 8 projects going right now, I'm not very likely to want to do it unless it's like massive amount of money, I'm going to make on the flip. Now, if it's a smaller job and it's just kind of like paint and floors, like that's a different scenario, which I can do. Maybe 2 guys can do that in like 2 weeks or less versus like it's a 6-month job. And so from the process part comes in of consistently doing the things that are going to get you the pieces. So how do I get leads? I go to wholesalers. 78.6% of our deals to this point have come from wholesalers. 11% have come from MLS, and the rest have come from word of mouth. So consistently doing that, and then knowing exactly what I'm looking for those things on a daily basis. And then once we find those things, then like I don't go walk properties anymore before we purchase them, because what was happening was I would go walk the property, I'd get an idea what the rehab value was. Then I would send my contractor to go walk the same property and validate it. And then we do offers and stuff. And I've just cut myself out of that, where now he goes and walks stuff. And we've even taken a step a little bit further where like I will look at it and I think, well, based on pictures, I think now with experience that this estimated renovation is going to be 20, 40, whatever that number is. And then I'll put a soft offer into the wholesaler. Be like, hey, this is where I'm probably going to need to be. I'll need to validate that with a walkthrough. And then if we're close, then we'll go walk it. And if not, then we won't go walk it. And that saves me sending my contractor on these goose chases of houses that I'm never going to be able to come to terms with with the seller or the wholesaler.
That's super interesting. How are these wholesalers finding the numbers in the same way that you are? Do you ever struggle looking at numbers and being like, I don't think this is 70% ARV. How are you coming up with how are you coming up with this number?
Yeah, I mean, I think running comps is a bit of an art form, right? And as a end buyer, I tend to be more conservative. So like a
Mm-hmm.
wholesaler might look at a house and be like, okay, there was one house 2 miles away that sold for $230,000. That's what I'm going to call the ARV. And then I look at it and be like, okay, yeah, but the two houses across the street sold last year for 180,000. So maybe 230 is what it will sell for, but I can't run numbers on 230. I got to run numbers at 180 just to make sure that it doesn't come back low in either the appraisal or the sale and I lose money. Because if I make money at 180, I'm definitely gonna make money at 230, but it doesn't go the other way. Right.
Right.
And so this is where the volume comes in, because yeah, I have to run my numbers super conservative because I want to make sure that my investors are protected. That's extremely, extremely important to me. And then secondary to my investors being protected, that our business is protected so that we can be profitable not only in long term but also in the short term from a cash flow standpoint.
Yes. And the processes that you have in place, are you holding this the majority of these rentals? Because walk me through the process. You get a property, you analyze the comp, you say, okay, this is within my criteria. You go look at the contractors, get the quotes, everything's going smooth. You're bringing private money, right?
Yep.
To close down the deal. Okay,
Yep.
walk me through the rest of the transaction all the way until your exit strategy. What does that look like?
So yeah, we've got the property. We basically send out the email to our list of private money lenders. We get it funded, we get it closed on, and at that point, then whether it's a draw or the money comes right to our account, we begin the construction process. We usually get that wrapped up within a month or two, depending on the level of work needed. And then if it's a rental, then it gets transferred to property management. So we have a property manager in basically every city that we have properties in. So we have, I think, 5 property managers right now. We do that from a risk mitigation standpoint. Everything, they're filling the property, they're making sure the work orders are taken care of. My business partner and I have split our business into components. So there's a lender relation component that would be, finding money, nurturing those relationships. My business partner does that. Operations is all me. I make sure the bills, all that stuff is taken care of. I build the processes. I put the systems in place. Project management, that's all me. So from the time we purchase a property until we either are ready to sell it or ready to rent it, that's my baby. And then property management, that would be, and dispositions would be my partner. So once the property is done being renovated, then it goes to my partner and he either gets it filled for a rental with the property manager, or he works with a realtor to get it listed and get it sold. And so we've broken out, and those breakouts have really fallen more on where our skill sets are. My partner is really, really good at talking to people, at fundraising. He's also really good at negotiating with sellers. And then he's picked up the property management component as well, because it just made a lot of sense for him to take that with his other properties that he had, and leaving me more time to focus on making sure the processes and the systems of the business are moving forward, as well as managing all the contractors in the renovation phase. And so we have a nice cadence going right there, and that's why we're able to work on 8 to 10 flips at a time. Keeping all of our contractors moving, making sure, like, okay, we need a double vanity. Those take 2 weeks. The plumber can't be there for 2 weeks. So what can we do before that happens? And then communicating constantly with him, my partner, and like the realtor or the property manager, like, hey, this property is going to be ready in X number of weeks. Make sure that we're getting the measurements done. Make sure we're doing all these other things. So that when we are ready, when we're finished, we're not sitting on off market for too long. We want to get it on the market and get it listed, get it rented or sold as soon as possible.
Okay, I see what you're saying. On the private money, what type of returns are your investors looking for?
So our private money lenders are basically just individuals. A lot of them are, I think 40% are using self-directed IRAs. A lot of them are just individuals with cash in hand. We treat our private money lenders really, really well. So we have a couple different options. First would be like short-term money, so for flipping, and we're generally, paying somewhere between 12 and 14% for 3 to 6 months to get that money up.
Is
And
that
then
annualized? Is that annualized?
that's annualized. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So for short-term money, and then our long-term money, we have anything anywhere between 6 and 8%, and we pay interest only on that, and then they get to take a chunk of the equity at the back end as well. So
Mm,
when we sell it or refinance it, they would get their equity paid off, and then we would own it free and clear, or we wouldn't have to hold any other equity partners in it at that point.
okay, super interesting. I've heard of that, but first time that I heard somebody actually doing it. I guess
Yeah.
what from your standpoint, um, is that something that you're pursuing? You would rather have 100% equity within your company instead of having limited partners?
So, with private money, like, it's a partnership, right? It's
Right.
not about our business versus their business. It's how can I work with these private money lenders to help our business grow while also helping make sure they are getting a really good return on their investment. The very last thing I would ever want is to endanger my relationship with any of those private money lenders for a couple of reasons. A, my reputation is worth more than any amount of money in the world, right? And we have never taken a loss on a property. And if we did, we would eat the loss and the lender would never even know that it happened. And the reason is that lenders, just like any other person in real estate, it's a very small community. And if I just say, oh, no, too bad for you, that was a bad mistake, you shouldn't have invested with us on that one, right? And they get a bad taste in their mouth, they're going to go and tell somebody else, and then they're going to tell somebody else. And pretty soon we can't get money from our lenders to do that, right? Some of these guys, my partner's been working with for 6 years. I've now been working with a lot of our lenders for 2 years. And we really see it as a long-term partnership to grow everybody's pocketbook, everybody's wealth, everybody's portfolio. And so, it's not about getting them out. It's more often we refinance properties is to get their capital out of that deal so that they can reinvest it into something else, right?
Okay.
We'll go through spurts. Like July this year, we bought 13 properties. And so we were really pushing, I think we it was like $1.2 million worth of assets, right? And so we pushed our investors really hard of like, this is how much money we need. And we got all of it funded. But then we have to wait for a little while for everybody to get some more money again. Or we got to start refinancing properties that we currently have so that they can get their capital out, get a really good return on it, and then redeploy it into another one of our properties, another one of our deals.
Okay, yeah, that's I've heard that before, and I 100% agree with you. Your reputation is worth more than any dollar amount. In terms of
Yeah.
the partnership that you have, how are you structured? Was that easy to structure in the way that you guys just came across, you doing the project management of things and then him doing the connections and the networking? Was that something that just clicked, or was that something that you have to constantly worked on?
Partnerships in business are a lot like partnerships or marriage. It's a constant effort. And there's times that I drive him nuts and there's times that he drives me nuts. But we just constantly work together. Our biggest issue when we first started together was that both of us had been working as solopreneurs for a while, right? And he had some other partners, but he was basically boots on ground. And so we basically spent a lot of time stepping on each other's toes. Like I would talk to a contractor about something, and then that he would talk to that same contractor about something similar. And, the contractors are getting frustrated. I was getting frustrated. He was getting frustrated. And so at the end of last year, beginning of this year, we sat down and really wrote out what the roles and responsibilities were for our business and who was responsible for what. And so now, when work orders from property managers come in, I don't even look at them. Now, I will look at them occasionally, and not because I'm going to fix them, but because I want to know what are the consistent issues that the renters are seeing, so that I can work on the project management side to make sure that those things are taken care of. But I don't look at the property management stuff. I don't sign the leases. I don't worry about what's getting rented. He tells me on a weekly basis, we got one rented, we didn't get rented. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't worry about that. he doesn't worry about the project management stuff. That's mine, right? And when I find a property to get it under contract, I send it to him, and I just assume he's going to get lenders to fund it, right? I don't worry about that. I focus on other things. If you and your partner are focused on the same things, you're not getting the value out of a partnership. You need to divide and conquer and have specific roles and responsibilities that you both do, so that you can not go 1 + 1 is 2, but 1 + 1 is 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. How do you know you find the right partner, I guess?
I mean, I recommend starting with a JV, just do one deal together, one smaller deal, see how you like working together. And I say that knowing that I did one deal with my partner, and then we bought 6 more properties like 2 months later. So a little hypocritical, but I think one of the things you don't want to do is like, hey, you're my buddy, right? And we're both really good at talking to people. Let's go into business together. Like, are your skill sets the same? Like, what's the value of you being in a partnership with somebody that's got the same skills as you? In a lot of cases, the person that you should be partnered with is probably the person that you're not going to like hang out with outside of work. Because those are the people that have a different way of looking at things. They have a different skill set, and you're going to complement each other. I did not partnership, but I hired a executive assistant a couple months ago. And when we did those interviews, we highly use personality test when we are doing the interview process. And there was 2 candidates, and they were both like excellent candidates. We interviewed them both. They both like were really good. One of the candidates, like I just clicked with, like we were joking, and she was really, really nice. I enjoyed talking to her. I enjoyed working with her. I thought, this would be a great, when we're looking at a personality test, and I realized like she is very similar to my personality type. The other person, like it wasn't as smooth. It wasn't clicky, and I would have probably just pushed her off. But I'm looking at her, and like I'm not super detail oriented. I'm more visionary. I'm more big picture.
Yeah.
And she's super detail oriented. More introverted. All the things that I'm not. And so we actually hired the person that I didn't click with, and it's been great because like she is very detail oriented. She does a lot of things that she enjoys doing that I can't stand doing. And like for example, the first task I gave her when I got her on board was, I need you to go through all of our insurance claims, because we had like 50 properties at the time, and make sure we've got insurance. And I need you to write in the policy number into our CRM in every property. And she found 2 properties that insurance had lapsed on, or the insurance company had missed, that weren't covered at all. Right. And so she immediately found issues, and we're able to rectify those within the first week or 2 of being in there. And it's because it was something that I wasn't good at. I didn't like doing. And so I hadn't done it. And she went and did it and found something that quick. Right. And you can tell yourself all day that, oh, I'm not good at this, but or I don't like doing this, but I'm still good at it. Like if you don't like doing it, you're probably not that good at it.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's something that gets deprioritized. You always will find other things to do instead. And so it's not getting done. I don't enjoy dealing with QuickBooks and accounting and stuff. So I have a bookkeeper, because that's what they do. And things are done way better than when I was doing them, because it was a pain in the butt I had to deal with every week to go and categorize transactions. Instead, created a system. This is how you file. And now it's all done for me.
Yeah, 100%. Outsourcing those low value tasks. I guess right now that you're you have consolidated your business, well, definitely in comparison to a year from today, what are some of those high value tasks?
So my personality, I'm a visionary, right? And so I'm constantly looking at where are we trying to get in 5, 10, 15 years. And so to me right now, the high value tasks are around like, what is actually bringing revenue into the business. So like, I'm still going to manage the project stuff right now, or at least do acquisitions and project management, because those are the highest value things. But also like, how can we structure, I have multiple businesses. How can I structure my businesses to foresee what those pinch points are and overcome them before we get there? Right. And so we have a cyclical process of, we find a bunch of property, or we have a bunch of lenders that have money. We find a bunch of properties, we get them under contract. We have a bunch of lenders with no money. We find a bunch, it kind of goes back and forth. And so how can I streamline that so that we don't have these big swings of there's lots of money available, there's no money available? How can I streamline that I have lots of deals coming in, I have no deals coming in? How can I streamline our cash flow so we have more consistent cash flow coming in on a monthly basis to cover additional things like, a sewer line went out, there's $7,000, HVAC went out, there's $10,000, things like that. So constantly looking and strategizing to make the business as healthy as possible so that it can grow and expand beyond where it is now, where it even will be in a year or so.
Interesting. What do you see now the business going from today until December? What are those short-term goals?
So yeah, so our short-term goals. So this year we've gone through a bunch of changes. Last year was all about how do I buy properties, right? And we figured that out pretty well. This year it was how do I shorten my cash conversion cycle? So how can rentals are a very long cash conversion cycle. You buy it, you renovate it, you put a renter in, you wait for a year for the cash flow to equal out. You hope nothing breaks, right? And then eventually the property appreciates enough and you can refinance it. We started flipping properties earlier this year to shorten that cash conversion cycle. You buy a property, renovate it, sell the property, much shorter. And then within the last month or so, we've started a wholesaling business to bring in our own leads so that we have more control over what deals we get and what the margins are, but also so that we can add an additional revenue stream that you find a lead, you get a contract, you get the contract sold, you get cash, right? So instead of like 3-month cash conversion cycle, you're more like 4 to 6 week cash conversion cycle. And so we're trying to vertically integrate some of those things, as well as I have another company that is focused on wholesaler transactional lending for double closes. So building that out, getting my name or getting that business built up more and bringing in more revenue from that, because I think that longer term, there will be a lot of movement in that market where states and the government are going to look less kindly on assignment fees. And I don't think that's today, right? There's still a lot of assignment fees going on. We still use some assignment fees, but there's more and more double closes that are being required. And as someone that wants to help wholesalers and also wants to, build a business that's profitable, we are actively trying to make a name for ourselves in the industry now, so that as those legislation comes down the pipe in a year or two, like we are very well positioned to take a good chunk of that market share.
So you think that eventually the regulations are going to eat out wholesalers?
I think that wholesalers will always have a very critical place in just the overall market. There are a ton of houses that will never be able to be on the MLS without significant renovations.
Right.
And there's a ton of houses that realtors just don't want to touch, right? If I'm making 4% on sale and the house costs $20,000, like there's not a lot of financial incentive to do that. So I think how wholesalers do business, which right now is primarily like assignment of contracts, right? I think that will shift as the government looks at wholesalers in a way of how can we protect the seller from predatory practices. And when I say predatory practices, I do not mean like they bought a house for $20,000 and then a flipper did work to it and sold it for $180,000, right? I'm thinking like, I don't have no idea of as a wholesaler if I'm going to be able to sell this property at $90,000, but I'm going to put it under contract, right? Tell the seller that I'm the end buyer, right? And then
you're not.
I can't do anything about it. And I just cancel the contract. And the seller's like, I thought I was going to move out of this place, right? And I thought I had this thing. And it goes back to the reputation thing of we need to make sure we're taking care of all the people around us. And that's not something, that's the kind of thing that's going to get legislators and policymakers up in arms that, Granny thought she had her house sold and now she can't, and she did a bunch of stuff and now she can't afford to eat or something. So it's already started in a few states. There was a letter that came out in North Carolina earlier this year that basically said that they already have statutes in place that say that assignment of contracts are considered commissions, and you have to be a real estate realtor with a license in order to accept commission. But there's no teeth behind it. They haven't enforced it
Okay.
yet. but it's there. And so all they have to do is find somebody has to have a reason to enforce it, and then it'll be the law of the land. Now there's been some recent legislation in South Carolina about it. I know there's some stuff in Texas, Illinois. So like there's some movement that's kind of happening. It's just been slow. But to your answer to your question, no, I don't think wholesalers will ever not be in business. I just think how they do business will change, and that's just the nature of every kind of business. Like nothing's ever the same. There's constantly flux, there's constantly movement, and you need to be able to adjust and deal with that.
Just like driving. Now we're driving, self-driving, sticking over the place, but you still need drivers in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And even how wholesalers do business will change as AI gets more pronounced. And, right now we've got cold callers that are calling and doing leads. And what's to say in 5 years, I don't have AI bots that sound just like humans, right? And they have my script and they can respond, and I can pump out 4,000 calls, right? But the difference, the thing that will happen there is the more automated you make something, the more accessible that thing is to everyone, which means that there's less margins, right? It starts you start chasing or dropping the bottom out of your margins. And so the people that will be successful in those spaces are the people that figure out how to automate the fastest, and how to put processes and systems in place that reduce overhead, increase volume.
Yeah, more competition. You're just making everything easier for everybody, so it's just more competition to you.
That's already happened, right? Just the invention of batch leads and prop stream has to wholesale a property in North Carolina. 30 years ago, if you wanted to wholesale a property, you had to be in North Carolina and like drive around and look.
Yeah, a lot more driving for dollars instead of just online.
And local knowledge of what the property will sell for, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What's the best way to contact you if people see the podcast and want to ask you questions or just want to get in touch with you, see how they can do deals with you?
Yeah, so I am heavily active on Instagram. So my handle is Invest with Loren. And in fact, any wholesalers that are listening, so I'm a big proponent of trying to add value to wholesalers, and there's a lot of new wholesalers out there. If you follow me and DM the word deal, I will send you a link to a Google folder that has a wholesaler deal calculator, purchase agreement, assignment contract, and just kind of a starter pack for wholesalers that I'm happy to share. It's just a Google. You don't have to give me an email address. I'm not asking for any money. Just send me the word deal in my DMs. I will send you over the folder. You copy it, and it's all yours.
Okay, I might want to take a look at that and see how yours is different from mine.
Go for it. Happy to send it over.
If you guys made it this far on the video, subscribe, hit the like button. Thank you so much for being here, Loren. Appreciate your time. I learned a lot. The private money part was one of the things that draw the most attention to me, just because I'm in that part of the process, but learn tons. Thank you so much for all your knowledge and time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, occasionally I'll throw a Calendly link up on my stories where I do some like free coaching just for the fun of it. And one of the things that people always want to talk about is how to find private money. And we're pretty good at, I'd say that we're world-class at finding deals and finding money. So love talking about that. And I would argue that it's easier to make private money than find private money.
Wow. Well, that is a conversation for another podcast. If you guys made it this part of the video, subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.